In every man there exists a shadow, an unseen dimension of the self that holds all the parts he has refused to acknowledge. These are the impulses, fears, instincts, and desires he has been taught to deny, suppress, or cast away in order to maintain the image of what society deems acceptable. And yet it is precisely in the confrontation and integration of this shadow that a man becomes truly attractive, not in the superficial sense of appearance or status, but in the quiet, unshakable presence that draws others without effort or intention. Many men walk through life wearing masks. They become skilled at displaying strength while hiding their fears, offering charm while burying their insecurities, and projecting confidence while being consumed by doubt. But those who possess genuine magnetism have embarked on a far more difficult path, the journey inward toward the unknown territories of their own nature. They do not deny the parts of themselves that make them uncomfortable. They do not seek to destroy the darker impulses within, nor do they surrender to them. Instead, they confront them, study them, and ultimately integrate them into the whole of who they are. This process does not happen in moments of ease, but in those hours of solitude when a man is stripped of his titles, his accolades, and his performances. It is there, in the silence of his own company, that the shadow speaks. It whispers truths he would rather not hear, reveals wounds he pretends do not exist, and stirs desires he has long tried to banish. The man who turns away from these voices remains divided, fractured, and hollow. But the one who leans in, who dares to listen, begins the slow work of unifying his inner world. When a man integrates his shadow, he no longer projects it onto others. He ceases to blame, criticize, and judge those who embody what he himself refuses to face. He becomes less reactive and more reflective. In conflict, he does not seek to dominate or submit, but to understand. In desire, he does not seek to possess, but to connect. This inner coherence radiates in ways that words cannot fully explain. It gives his voice a certain weight, his presence a grounding force, and his gaze a depth that unsettles and captivates. The reason such a man is attractive is because he carries no hidden war within himself. He walks through the world in possession of both his light and his darkness, and others instinctively sense this completeness. There's no desperation to be liked, no frantic effort to prove worth. His approval of himself is no longer dependent on external validation. This self-possession creates a quiet confidence that neither boasts nor pleads, it simply is. And people, particularly women, are drawn to it not for what it promises, but for what it reveals about their own unexplored depths. There's a certain irony in this, for society often conditions men to believe that attractiveness lies in external conquest, wealth, status, appearance. Yet those things, while briefly captivating, lack the enduring power of a man who knows himself. A man who has made peace with his flaws and embraced his imperfections becomes unpredictable in the best way. He can be both tender and fierce, controlled yet passionate, rational yet wildly creative. He no longer fears rejection because he has already sat with his own pain. He no longer needs to manipulate attention because his presence speaks louder than performance ever could. This is why those rare men who have faced their shadow possess an almost mystical allure. It isn't about perfection, but about wholeness. The attractiveness comes not from an absence of darkness, but from an honest relationship with it. Such men understand their capacity for anger, jealousy, greed, and violence, yet choose to channel those forces toward creation rather than destruction. They do not seek to become saints, but to become real, fully alive, fully present, and fully aware. In their company, others feel a strange mix of safety and danger. Safety because there is nothing false in their words or actions, and danger because such authenticity threatens the illusions we cling to about ourselves. These men, by integrating their shadow, offer others permission to do the same, and this is what truly makes them attractive, not the shine of their achievements, but the depth of their being. A man without a sense of inner purpose is like a ship adrift at sea, moved by the winds of circumstance, following the currents of others' expectations, and at the mercy of every passing storm. But a man who has discovered, or is in pursuit of, his own personal meaning radiates a kind of quiet authority that is impossible to imitate. There is a weight to his presence, a gravitational pull that draws others without him needing to chase or convince. It is not the loud, boastful confidence that relies on external markers, but a rootedness that can only be found when a man aligns himself with something greater than his temporary desires. True attractiveness begins in the unseen world. It exists first in the inner life of a man long before it ever shows up in his words or actions. A man connected to his purpose moves differently in the world because he is no longer searching for himself in fleeting pleasures or the approval of others. His actions are not dictated by trends, nor are his values swayed by the opinions of the crowd. He carries within him a kind of inner compass, one that points toward his own personal north, whether others understand it or not. What makes this so magnetic is that most people live in quiet desperation, pulled between who they are and who they pretend to be. To encounter someone who knows why he wakes up in the morning, why he endures struggle, and why he chooses certain sacrifices is both unsettling and captivating. It reminds others of their own dormant longing for meaning. The attractive force of such a man is not merely that he has purpose, but that his life speaks to something beyond survival. It touches the eternal, the archetypal, the mythic. There is a natural calm in men who have found this. They do not rush to fill silences, nor do they feel the need to prove themselves in every interaction. Because they are in conversation with something larger than the trivial concerns of the moment, their energy is reserved, deliberate. Others sense this, though they might not be able to name it. It shows in the way such a man listens, not as a tactic, but because he is genuinely present. It reveals itself in his ability to endure discomfort, not as a performance of toughness, but because he recognizes difficulty as part of a larger path. The world teaches men to chase recognition, status, and validation. Yet none of these satisfy the deeper hunger for meaning. When a man lives solely for external approval, he remains restless. The applause fades, the trophies gather dust, and the achievements, no matter how impressive, lose their luster. In contrast, a man who is animated by a personal mission is nourished from within. His fulfillment is not dependent on whether the world notices. He understands that significance is different from success, and this distinction shapes every choice he makes. Attractiveness is not static, and it cannot be separated from the question of direction. A man's beauty, in the sense of his presence and energy, changes as he moves either toward or away from his purpose. Even in uncertainty, when he does not have all the answers, his willingness to seek, to question, and to endure sets him apart. The search itself gives him dimension. It grants him depth because it forces him to confront what is false within, and to shed what no longer belongs to the man he is becoming. Others are drawn to this not because he possesses everything, but because he is actively engaged in the work of becoming. There is an allure in a man who is chasing something real, something that cannot be bought or borrowed. It awakens the awareness in others that they, too, are meant for something greater than numb routine. A man with purpose carries the sacred weight of someone who is in relationship with meaning, and this creates a presence that is felt long after he has left the room. This is not about grandiosity or the illusion of destiny in the way the world defines it. It may be a purpose known only to him, the care of a family, the pursuit of wisdom, the mastery of a craft, or the quiet service of others. The size of the purpose is irrelevant. It is the sincerity with which he walks it that matters. That sincerity cannot be faked, and when it is real, it makes a man unforgettable. In the depths of a man's soul lies a landscape far richer and more intricate than the one he displays to the world. Yet, in a society that rewards detachment and stoicism, men are often taught to construct barriers around their emotional selves, to guard their inner world as though vulnerability were a threat rather than a strength. But if one seeks to understand what truly makes a man attractive, not in the fleeting sense of charm or surface charisma, but in the enduring, magnetic sense, it is his capacity for emotional depth and his courage to be vulnerable that separates him from the rest. A man who has cultivated emotional depth possesses a certain stillness, a presence that allows others to feel seen, heard, and understood in ways they didn't know they craved. This is not because he overwhelms others with emotional display, but because he carries within him a rich, lived awareness of the human condition. He has touched his own sorrow and joy, wrestled with his fears, acknowledged his longings, and made peace with his imperfections. In doing so, he radiates authenticity. His words are not rehearsed to impress, nor are his gestures calculated for approval. He is what he appears to be, and more importantly, he is unafraid to reveal the tender places beneath his armor. Most people navigate their lives half seen and half heard, existing behind social masks carefully constructed to shield their deepest truths. To encounter a man who is unafraid to gently lower those defenses, who can say, "This is what I feel, and this is what it means to me," is to experience something disarming and deeply attractive. There is strength in such openness because it requires more courage to reveal one's inner self than to hide behind indifference. Vulnerability, when it is sincere and not performed, creates a bridge between souls. It awakens a forgotten language of human connection, one that transcends appearances and touches something eternal. Emotional depth does not mean constant expression of feeling, nor does it require dramatic displays. It is instead a quiet, enduring relationship with one's own emotional landscape. A man who possesses this has learned to sit with his own discomfort, to explore the darker corners of his psyche without needing to numb, distract, or flee. He understands his moods, his triggers, his patterns, and in knowing them, he becomes less a slave to them. This mastery is deeply attractive because it suggests reliability without rigidity and sensitivity without fragility. Moreover, a man who can express his emotions honestly invites others to do the same. In his presence, people often find themselves speaking truths they had long kept buried, sensing that here is a person who will neither flinch nor judge. He listens not to respond, but to understand. His empathy is not a strategy, but a reflection of his own encounters with pain, hope, and longing. And in this exchange, others feel the rare relief of being fully human in someone else's company. The courage to be vulnerable also means being willing to name one's fears, to admit when one does not have all the answers, and to confess moments of weakness. This is not weakness itself, but an act of inner strength, for it takes a centered, grounded man to reveal himself without fearing the consequences. Such honesty breaks through the exhausting performances that plague modern relationships, offering instead a foundation built on truth. There is also an undeniable allure in the paradox of a man who possesses both strength and softness, one who can hold his ground in the face of adversity, yet remain open enough to feel, to mourn, and to hope. This integration of what might appear to be opposing qualities, resilience and tenderness, certainty and doubt, creates a multidimensional character that others cannot help but be drawn to. He becomes a mirror reflecting not just the image people wish to project, but the deeper self they secretly long to embrace. Ultimately, what makes a man attractive is not his ability to remain unshaken, but his willingness to feel deeply and remain standing. It is the quiet dignity of one who has faced his own storms and continues to walk forward, inviting others to walk alongside him in honesty, in strength, and in grace. There exists a particular kind of power in a man who possesses self-awareness, not the superficial self-consciousness born from worrying about how others perceive him, but a deeper, almost mythic knowing of who he is, what shapes him, and where his shadows lie. This self-awareness moves beyond personality quirks and habits. It speaks to an intimate relationship with his own psyche, a recognition of both the light and the darkness within. It is this quality that quietly distinguishes some men from the restless masses, for it grants a dignity and presence that cannot be borrowed or feigned. A man who knows himself does not stumble blindly through life reacting to every provocation, nor does he allow unconscious wounds to dictate his relationships and decisions. He has taken the difficult, often lonely journey inward, and returned with an understanding of his patterns, his desires, and his fears. He recognizes the masks he has worn to belong, the personas he adopted to feel powerful or loved, and the empty pursuits that once promised fulfillment but delivered only exhaustion. And in this recognition he gains a kind of inner authority. This man does not pretend to be flawless. In fact, it is his awareness of his own limitations and contradictions that make him trustworthy. He understands when his pride is speaking, when his ego is grasping, when his insecurities attempt to camouflage themselves as confidence. This humility, born not of weakness but of clarity, makes him approachable in a way that those addicted to bravado will never be. People sense intuitively when a man is not performing for them, but simply being himself. In his company there's a relief, an unspoken permission to be real. What makes self-awareness so undeniably attractive is that it grants a man control over what he projects into the world, not through manipulation, but through choice. He is not at the mercy of inherited beliefs or unconscious compulsions. When anger rises within him, he knows its source. When envy creeps in, he names it. When fear tightens its grip, he faces it with honesty. This internal dialogue shapes his outer world. He becomes intentional with his actions, his words, and his energy, and this intentionality creates a presence that others instinctively respect. Self-awareness also equips a man with the ability to navigate complexity in himself and in others. Where those lacking it reduce life to binaries and simplistic narratives, the self-aware man understands nuance. He is able to hold conflicting truths without breaking, to acknowledge his own flaws while extending grace to the imperfections of others. This creates an emotional spaciousness around him, a kind of sanctuary where people feel less judged and more understood. Furthermore, a man who possesses this quality tends to radiate a rare kind of calm. Because he has spent time in the inner wilderness of his own psyche, external chaos does not easily unnerve him. He can witness the storms in others without being swept away by them. His decisions are less reactive and more considered, drawn not from shallow impulses but from a deeper place of knowing. This calm isn't cold detachment, it's a groundedness that makes others instinctively trust him even when they cannot explain why. In love, in friendship, and in leadership, this kind of man offers something rare. He does not demand loyalty through fear or manipulation, but inspires it through integrity. He keeps his word not for appearances, but because his relationship with himself demands it. He apologizes when necessary without shrinking, and he asserts his needs without aggression. There's a simplicity to him, not because his life is simple, but because he has learned to cut through the noise within. The attractive power of self-awareness lies not in perfection, but in the willingness to confront imperfection with honesty. It is the courage to ask difficult questions, to challenge one's own narratives, and to evolve without losing oneself. This depth of character cannot be manufactured. It must be earned, often through struggle, through failure, and through the quiet, unseen moments of reckoning that shape a man into someone who, simply by his presence, reminds others of what it means to be truly human. There is an unmistakable magnetism in a man who moves through the world with quiet confidence, not the loud, boastful swagger that demands attention, but the kind of calm assurance that needs no validation. This confidence is rooted not in the approval of others, nor in fleeting accomplishments, but in an inner certainty about his own worth and direction. It is a confidence born from self-respect and from having faced both failure and triumph without losing sight of who he is at the core. Such a man is not driven by the desperate need to be liked, nor does he perform for applause. He understands that the opinions of others, while sometimes valuable, are ultimately external echoes, and they cannot define the substance of his being. This detachment from the relentless need for approval liberates him. It allows him to speak his truth without embellishment and to act in alignment with his values, even when it is unpopular or inconvenient. People feel this authenticity, and they are drawn to it because, in a world that so often rewards conformity, authenticity feels like oxygen. What makes this kind of confidence so attractive is that it creates a sense of stability around the man who possesses it. In a room full of posturing and fragile egos, he remains centered. He does not seek to dominate, nor does he retreat into passivity. His energy is steady, his gaze direct, his words chosen not to impress but to express. Others notice, often without fully understanding why they are drawn to him. It's the unspoken language of presence, a subtle signal that here stands a man who knows himself and has no need to pretend otherwise. This quiet confidence also translates into decisiveness. Because he is not paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes or disappointing others, he makes choices from a place of clarity. He listens, considers, and then moves forward. When he errs, and he inevitably will, as all humans do, he takes responsibility without self-pity. He learns, adjusts, and continues. This resilience adds another layer to his attractiveness, for it demonstrates a capacity to withstand life's uncertainties without becoming cynical or defeated. A confident man also has the rare ability to celebrate the success of others without feeling diminished. He does not view life as a competition in which another's rise is his fall. Secure in his own journey, he recognizes that everyone walks a unique path. This generosity of spirit makes him a valuable friend, a loyal partner, and a fair leader. Those around him do not feel the constant weight of comparison or subtle competition, but rather the freedom to be fully themselves. Moreover, this inner assurance allows him to embrace vulnerability without it threatening his sense of masculinity. He can admit when he's afraid, ask for help when needed, and express tenderness without feeling weak. The paradox of strength in softness becomes evident in him. He knows that being human means experiencing a full spectrum of emotion, and rather than resisting this, he allows it to inform his growth. In doing so, he redefines what it means to be strong, making space for others to do the same. This kind of confidence is also inseparable from a sense of purpose. It is difficult to maintain inner assurance without a clear relationship to one's values and goals. A man grounded in purpose does not drift aimlessly, nor does he chase every opportunity for the sake of appearances. His actions are deliberate, even when his path is not perfectly clear. He trusts in the direction of his life because it aligns with his inner compass, not because it guarantees applause or wealth. In his relationships, this confidence allows for genuine intimacy. He does not play games, nor does he withhold affection as a form of control. His self-worth does not hinge on external validation, so he is free to give without calculation and to love without fear of appearing vulnerable. It is this rare balance of strength and openness that leaves a lasting impression. He becomes not just attractive in the fleeting sense, but memorable, a figure who, simply by being, reminds others of what is possible when a person chooses to live in quiet, unshakable alignment with themselves. There is a profound allure in a man who possesses emotional intelligence, an ability not merely to feel, but to understand, regulate, and navigate the complex landscape of human emotions, both his own and those of others. In a world where many are consumed by the instinctive urge to react, to lash out, to retreat, or to numb themselves from what they feel, the emotionally intelligent man stands apart. He does not deny his emotions, nor does he become enslaved by them. Instead, he possesses the rare wisdom to witness them, name them, and respond to them with intention rather than impulse. This kind of man recognizes that emotions are not weaknesses to be concealed, nor forces to be suppressed. They are messengers, signals from the unconscious that carry meaning, warnings, and truths that the rational mind alone often misses. The emotionally intelligent man pays attention to these signals. When anger rises within him, he asks what wound it seeks to protect. When sadness settles in his chest, he listens for the loss it mourns. In this way, he cultivates a relationship with his own emotional life, one marked by curiosity rather than avoidance. It is this inner relationship that enables him to navigate the emotional landscapes of others with sensitivity and grace. He does not mock or dismiss vulnerability. He does not flee from tears, nor does he recoil at the sight of another's anger or grief. Instead, he holds space for it. There is a stillness to his presence in those moments, an unspoken reassurance that says, "I am not afraid of what you feel." In relationships, whether romantic, platonic, or professional, this makes him invaluable. People instinctively trust those who neither judge their emotions nor weaponize them. Emotional intelligence also grants a man the capacity for empathy, the ability to step outside his own experience and genuinely imagine what another might be feeling. This is not to say he agrees with or condones every perspective, but he strives to understand it. In doing so, he avoids the trap of assuming his way is the only way, or that his pain is the deepest, or his joy the most profound. This openness to the experiences of others fosters connection in its purest form, for it dismantles the walls of judgment and replaces them with bridges of recognition. Furthermore, a man who masters his emotions possesses a kind of invisible strength. Not the brittle, performative toughness that cracks under pressure, but a resilient calm that endures. He may feel fear, but it does not rule him. He may feel rage, but it does not consume him. He acknowledges these emotions as temporary states rather than defining traits. This discernment grants him a freedom many lack, for he is not carried away by passing moods or external provocation. He can remain composed in conflict, measured in decision making, and tender in intimacy. His emotional intelligence also manifests in his communication. He speaks not to dominate, but to connect. He listens not merely to reply, but to understand. This attentiveness allows him to sense what lies beneath words, the unspoken needs, the hidden wounds, the fears behind the bravado. Conversations with such a man are rarely surface level. There is a depth to them, a willingness to explore the uncomfortable and the beautiful alike. Those who engage with him often leave feeling seen in ways they didn't expect, sometimes in ways they hadn't even realized they needed. And perhaps most powerfully, the emotionally intelligent man does not shy away from tenderness. In a culture that often equates masculinity with detachment and stoicism, he understands that true strength lies in the capacity to be both firm and gentle, to protect and to nurture, to lead and to yield when necessary. His emotions are not burdens he drags behind him, nor weapons he wields recklessly. They are tools, guides, and companions on his journey through life. This rare ability to master one's emotional world, to engage authentically with the hearts of others, and to maintain grace in both sorrow and joy makes a man undeniably magnetic. Not because he seeks to be, but because people are drawn to those in whom they sense both courage and kindness, clarity and compassion, a presence that reminds them of the depth and richness possible in the human experience. In the end, what truly makes a man attractive is not found in the surface-level attributes so often celebrated by a shallow society, but in the unseen architecture of his inner world. It is the man who dares to confront himself, who wrestles with his fears, who seeks meaning beyond material gain, and who moves through life with quiet certainty and graceful strength, that captivates those around him. His attractiveness lies in his depth, the layers of wisdom carved by experience, the authenticity that resists the pull of pretense, and the presence that makes others feel seen, safe, and understood. Such a man does not chase attention because he understands that true magnetism is not manufactured. It emanates naturally from a life lived in alignment with purpose, integrity, and emotional truth. He remains steady amidst chaos, vulnerable without weakness, and compassionate without compromise. People are drawn to him not because he demands it, but because something within them recognizes something within him, a quiet, enduring power. Attractiveness, then, is not merely about appearance, charm, or success. It is a reflection of one's relationship with oneself, with others, and with the deeper mysteries of existence. It is a resonance between the visible and the invisible, a harmony between strength and tenderness, confidence and humility, intellect and emotion. And when a man cultivates these qualities within himself, he does more than become attractive, he becomes unforgettable.